What would you do if you found something that wasn't yours, and inside it was a message that would change everything? This is the story of Marina Werner, a 38-year-old woman who was about to discover that sometimes, the most important moments in life appear when we least expect them. Marina sat on a worn wooden bench in Central Park, watching the leaves drift slowly to the ground. Her shoes were scuffed, her jeans had a tear at the knee, and the jacket she wore had seen better days. It was Tuesday afternoon, and like most days, she had nowhere to be. Nowhere to be meant no job, no prospects, and no real direction. The weight of unemployment pressed down on her shoulders like a heavy coat she couldn't take off. She had a son. Daniel was 7 years old, with curious eyes and a smile that could light up even the darkest room. But Marina wasn't raising him alone by choice. She was raising him alone because that was what life had thrown at her. Daniel's father, Samuel, had started down a path that Marina couldn't follow him on. The addiction had taken hold slowly at first, then all at once. Nights turned into arguments turned into tears, and eventually, Marina made the hardest decision of her life. She couldn't keep Daniel in that environment. She couldn't watch her son grow up surrounded by that kind of darkness. So she'd fought for custody, and by some miracle she'd won. Now it was just the two of them against the world. The money was running low. Her savings account had dwindled to barely $300. The apartment they shared in Queens was paid up for another month. But after that? Marina didn't know. She'd been looking for work everywhere. Fast food restaurants, warehouses, delivery services. But when employers saw her employment gap, saw that she'd been struggling for the past 2 years, something shifted in their eyes. Pity sometimes. Judgment often. But mostly rejection. Marina stood up from the bench, deciding to walk a bit. Movement helped her think. Maybe walking would clear her head and give her some kind of clarity about what to do next. As she made her way along the path, her eyes caught something glinting in the sunlight. At first, she almost walked past it. But something, maybe instinct, maybe just curiosity, made her stop and look closer. A wallet. Leather, expensive looking, sitting half-hidden under a pile of fallen leaves. Marina looked around to see if anyone nearby seemed to be searching for something. No one. Just the usual park crowd. Joggers, nannies with strollers, an old couple holding hands on a bench. She bent down and picked it up, her fingers recognizing immediately that this wasn't some discount store wallet. This was the real thing. Her first instinct was to turn it in at the park's information office. That was the right thing to do, wasn't it? But something made her pause. She opened it carefully. Inside there was cash. More cash than Marina had seen in months. Hundreds. Maybe even thousands. Her heart raced. For a moment, just a moment, her mind went to Daniel. She could use this money. She could keep them afloat for months. She could finally breathe. But underneath the cash, there was something else. A letter. The envelope was thick, expensive-looking paper, and on the front, in elegant handwriting, were just 3 words. To whoever finds this. Marina's hands trembled slightly as she opened the envelope. What she read would set her on a path she never could have imagined. The letter was handwritten, the penmanship perfect and deliberate. To whoever holds this letter, know that you were not meant to find this by accident. God sent you. I am in urgent need of someone I can trust, someone with integrity, someone who will not be swayed by money or greed. If you have the courage to make a call, to take a chance on something that might seem impossible, then please dial the number below immediately. My life depends on it. More than my life depends on it. Below the message was a phone number and a name, Rachel Albright. Marina read the letter 3 times. Her rational mind told her this was a scam, or a prank, or something altogether sinister. People didn't put letters in wallets expecting strangers to call them. This didn't make sense. None of this made sense. But there was something in the words that held her. Something about the way the letter was written. The urgency, the specificity, the mention of God. Marina had been raised in the church. Her grandmother had taught her about faith when she was young. Life had tested that faith repeatedly, but it was still there, buried beneath the layers of disappointment and struggle. She looked at the number again. Just a regular phone number. Nothing suspicious about it. Before she could overthink it further, before her doubt could consume her completely, Marina pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking. She dialed the number. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice answered. Female, older, with an edge of something Marina couldn't quite identify. Desperation, maybe? Hope. Hello, the voice said. Hi, Marina began, her voice uncertain. I found a wallet. In Central Park. And there was a letter inside. I'm not even sure why I'm calling. There was a moment of silence on the other end. The kind of silence that stretches out and makes you wonder if the connection has been lost. Then the voice came again, and this time it was filled with emotion. Where are you? The woman asked urgently. Are you still in the park? Yes, Marina said. I'm near the east entrance. Don't move, the woman commanded. I'm 15 minutes away. Just don't move. And thank you. Thank you so much for calling. The line went dead. Marina stood there, holding the phone to her ear, feeling like she was caught between 2 worlds. One was the world she knew. The world of financial struggle, of rejection letters, of worrying about how to pay rent and keep food on the table. The other was something entirely unknown. What was happening? Why had she called? Why couldn't she shake the feeling that her life had just shifted on its axis? She waited. The park continued around her, indifferent to the moment that was about to unfold. Joggers passed by. The old couple on the bench kissed. A mother chased her laughing child across the grass. Life went on. But for Marina Werner, life was about to change in ways she couldn't possibly understand. And the question that hung in the air, the question that would drive the rest of this story forward, was simple. Who was Rachel Albright, and why did she believe that God had sent a stranger to find her wallet? The answer, when it came, would be more extraordinary than anything Marina had ever experienced. Marina waited on the bench where she had found the wallet, her heart racing, her mind filled with questions. 15 minutes passed like hours. She looked at her phone every few seconds, half expecting the call to have been some kind of prank, half praying that it was real. Then she appeared. A black, luxurious car pulled into the entrance closest to the park. The door opened and a woman stepped out. She was approximately 60 years old, with perfectly groomed gray hair, and wore a suit that probably cost more than Marina had earned in 6 months. She walked toward Marina with a determination that only comes from someone used to being in command. Her name was Rachel Albright. When Rachel reached the bench where Marina was sitting, their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rachel simply observed Marina, her worn clothes, her expression of confusion and discomfort, the way she stood up nervously. Then Rachel smiled, but it wasn't an arrogant smile. It was something deeper, something that recognized something in the other. Did you open the wallet? Rachel asked, her voice calm and measured. Yes, ma'am, Marina replied, extending the wallet. I found a letter. I wasn't sure if. Rachel gently raised her hand, interrupting her. She sat on the bench, right next to Marina. For a moment, both remained silent, looking out at the park before them. Before we proceed, Rachel said, her words deliberate and careful, I need to ask you a question. A very important question, Marina. Marina froze. How do you know my name? Rachel ignored the question. Do you believe in God? The question was so direct, so unexpected, that Marina blinked. She didn't know what to say. Was this a trap? A test? She thought of her grandmother, who used to take her to church when she was young. She thought of all the nights she had prayed, asking for help that never seemed to come. She thought of Daniel, and how she had prayed for the strength to care for him. But when she answered, her voice was firm. True. Yes, ma'am. Of course I do. He is the owner of gold, of silver, of everything. He is the owner of all things in this world. Rachel turned to look directly into Marina's eyes. And in that moment, something passed between them. A recognition. An understanding that needed no words. You passed the test, Rachel said simply. The two sat in silence for a few minutes. Rachel continued looking out at the park, and Marina didn't know whether to speak or wait. There were so many questions burning in her mind. Then Rachel began to speak. Do you want to know who I am? Rachel asked, though she didn't expect an answer. I am someone who has spent her entire life chasing money and power. I started from nothing, Marina. Nothing. My father was a laborer, My mother was a maid. But I was hungry. I was ambitious. And I succeeded. Rachel paused, her hands closing into fists. I managed to build an empire. I have properties all over the country. I have companies worth billions. I have cars, yachts, airplanes. I have everything a woman could materially desire. But do you know what I'm most proud of, Marina? Do you know what I'm most proud of? Marina shook her head. Of having knocked people down. Of humiliating poor people who came to work for me. I saw them as less than human. As tools that I could discard when I no longer needed them. I was arrogant. I was cruel. And God does not appreciate arrogance. Rachel's voice grew quieter, more broken. 3 years ago, I began to feel pain. It started in my chest and spread throughout my entire body. My doctor couldn't identify what it was. I took it to the best specialists in the country. Nothing. They ran every kind of test, performed every kind of procedure, and nobody knew what was happening to me. I spent millions on treatments, Marina. Millions. But the pain only got worse. It was like it was consuming me from the inside out. Rachel paused for a long time, breathing deeply. There came a point where I knew I was dying. The doctors didn't want to admit it, but I knew. I felt in my soul that my time was running out. And that night, when I was lying in bed alone, in a mansion worth millions of dollars, I cried. I cried like a child. And I talked to God. Not as a rich and powerful woman talks to a beggar. I talked as a dying woman talks to her creator. Rachel's words echoed in the air around them, and Marina could feel the absolute truth in them. I told God I was sorry, that I had been arrogant and cruel, that I had wasted my life on things that didn't matter. I asked for forgiveness. And that night, Marina, God spoke to me, not with a voice I heard with my ears, but with a voice I heard in my soul. He said, "Stop your arrogance. Be humble with people. Be kind. Be the woman you should have been from the beginning." Rachel rolled up the sleeve of her jacket and showed her forearm to Marina. "See that scar you see there? That was where the pain was most intense. 3 years of unbearable pain in that spot. 3 years, Marina. The night I spoke to God, that pain disappeared. Completely. In the days that followed, all the pain disappeared. I went to the doctor expecting him to say he had found something. But the doctor looked at the tests and said there was nothing wrong with me. Nothing. He couldn't explain it. Tests from 3 months ago showed a serious anomaly. Now, nothing. Normal." Rachel looked at Marina again. "God healed me, Marina. And when he healed me, he also opened my eyes. I understood that money means nothing. That arrogance is the greatest of weaknesses. That God placed poor and humble people in my path to teach me the true lessons of life. And since then, I have tried to live differently. I have tried to be better." Marina was in shock. All of this was too big, too intense. "Why are you telling me this?" Marina asked, her voice trembling. Rachel smiled slightly. "Because you answered my question correctly. You believe in God, not because you expect something in return. You believe because your faith is pure. And because, Marina, you are the kind of woman God sent me to find." Rachel stood up from the bench and placed her hand on Marina's shoulder. "Do you want a job?" Rachel asked. Marina blinked, confused. "What? A job? I am the owner of Albright Motors. We build some of the most beautiful and expensive sports cars in the world. I need a general manager. Someone I can trust. Someone who has integrity. Someone who isn't driven only by greed." "Ma'am, I don't have experience in," Marina began. "You have 2 things more important than experience," Rachel interrupted. "You have character and you have faith. I can teach you everything you need to know about running a company, but I cannot teach you character. Either you have it or you don't. And you do." Marina felt tears threaten her eyes. Are you serious?" "Completely serious," Rachel confirmed. "The salary is $150,000 a year, plus performance-based bonuses. You will have an office in our building in Manhattan. You will have a team working for you. You will have opportunities for growth that you can't even imagine right now." Marina opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Why are you doing this?" Marina finally managed to ask. Rachel observed her for a long moment. "Why? Because you found my wallet when you could have left it in a trash bin. Because you called when you could have kept the money. Because you answered yes when I asked if you believe in God. Because God sent me to find you. Rachel took a business card from her jacket and handed it to Marina. Monday. Present yourself at 9 in the morning at this address. Bring identification documents. You will start immediately. Then Rachel turned and walked back to her car, leaving Marina alone on the bench, holding a business card that would change her life forever. Marina looked at the card. Her hands were trembling. The park around her remained the same, indifferent to the miracle that had just happened. But nothing was the same anymore. She had a job. She had hope. She had a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, God had not abandoned her. Marina picked up her phone and called her mother. "Mom, I got a job," she said when she answered. "I'll be able to take better care of Daniel. I'll be able to. Mom, God has blessed me. God has heard me." And as Marina walked home that day, walking the same path she had walked thousands of times before, but now with a completely different purpose, she knew that her life had turned a new page. But the story, in fact, had only just begun. There was still a final chapter to be written. A chapter that would reveal why Rachel had really chosen Marina. And a chapter that would show that sometimes, the generosity of one person can create ripples that change not just one life, but multiple lives around it. The first 3 months were a period of transformation that Marina could never have imagined possible. She woke up every day in a state of numb shock, as if waking from a dream she feared waking completely from. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. The salary deposited into her account every month. The apartment in Queens became a choice, not a necessity. She moved to a better neighborhood, a place where Daniel could have a park nearby, where the streets were safe, where she could breathe for the first time in years. She bought new clothes, not expensive or vain, but decent. Clothes that made her feel like a dignified woman, not like someone begging for charity. Daniel transformed too. The child who had worried eyes now had bright eyes. He asked less, "Mom, will we have food?" and asked more about the world. Marina enrolled him in a good school. She paid for the books, the uniforms, the extra classes. And she watched her son flourish. But there was something Marina still didn't completely understand. Rachel had offered her the job, yes, and it was a legitimate job. Marina was really the general manager of Albright Motors. But there were moments when Rachel looked at her in a way that seemed to carry a deeper meaning. As if there was more to the story, more of a reason why all of this was happening. 5 months after the meeting in the park, Rachel called Marina to her office. This was a special office. Not the main executive office, but a private studio on a separate floor of the building. Marina had never been there before. When she entered, Rachel was standing, looking out the window at Manhattan in the distance. She turned when she heard the door open. "Sit down, Marina," Rachel said, pointing to a leather armchair. Marina sat down. Her heart raced a bit. It was a formal, deliberate summons. "You have been an excellent employee," Rachel began. "Your numbers are impressive. The team respects you. You have brought innovation and integrity to every project. This makes me very happy." "Thank you, ma'am," Marina replied. "I really appreciate the opportunity you've given me." Rachel smiled, but there was sadness in that smile. She returned to her chair and sat down across from Marina. "There is something you need to know," Rachel said. "Something I should have told you from the beginning, but I needed to see first. I needed to confirm that you were truly the woman God sent me to find." Marina felt her body grow tense. "When I placed that wallet in that park, Marina, it was intentional," Rachel continued. "I knew someone would find it. And I knew that someone had to be a special person. A person with faith. A person with integrity. A person who couldn't be corrupted by money or greed." Marina blinked. You placed the wallet there intentionally?" "Yes," Rachel confirmed. "I had spent months preparing for this. I visited that park hundreds of times, observing, praying, asking God to send me the right person. And then one day, Marina, you were there, sitting on that bench with that desperate look. But that look still had hope. That look still had faith. I felt it. I felt that you were the person." So you were watching me?" Marina asked, bewildered. "Yes," Rachel answered. "After you called, I found out everything about you. Your work history, your situation with your son, your personal story. And the more I learned, the more certain I became that God had guided me correctly. Rachel leaned forward. But there is more, Marina. There is a reason why you were in that park on that exact day. A reason that goes beyond coincidence. Rachel stood up and walked to a bookshelf on her wall. She removed an album of old photographs. When she returned, she opened it for Marina. The photographs showed Rachel when she was younger. But it wasn't just Rachel. There were men in various photographs. Different men. And in many of the photos, Rachel had that same arrogant look she had described. A lack of compassion, a cold superiority. But there was one particular photograph. A photo of Rachel, still young, perhaps in her early 30s, in an office. Next to her, sitting in a chair, was a young man. He had unhappy eyes. And in his arms was a small child. What photograph is this? Marina asked. Rachel breathed deeply. This is a photograph of Ethan. Ethan was a man who worked for me 35 years ago. He was my secretary. And this was his son, Samuel. Marina felt the blood freeze in her veins. Samuel, she whispered. Yes, Rachel confirmed. Samuel, the father of your son, Daniel. The world around Marina began to spin. She couldn't process what was being said. Rachel continued. I had a brief relationship with Ethan when he worked for me. It was during a time when I was especially cruel and selfish. When Ethan discovered he was pregnant. The text means, when Ethan had a child and tried to tell me. He tried to tell me, but I refused him. I denied responsibility. I treated him like he was nothing. He was abandoned by me, Marina. He raised Samuel alone, working multiple jobs, doing the best he could. Rachel's voice broke. Ethan died when Samuel was 17 years old. A heart disease. Quick. Without warning. Samuel had no one. He didn't even know his mother, not really. And he got lost after that, Marina. Without emotional support, without structure, he started using drugs. I tried to find his whereabouts several times over the years, but he disappeared into the streets. Rachel looked directly at Marina. When you called from the park, when you mentioned your name, I started asking questions. I discovered that you were raising a boy alone. I discovered that the boy's father was a man named Samuel who had lost custody because of a struggle with addiction. And when I discovered this information, Marina, my heart almost stopped. You are Daniel's grandmother? Marina whispered, still unable to believe it. Biologically, yes, Rachel replied. But I carry a lot of guilt for this, Marina. My arrogance, my cruelty, my lack of compassion created a cascade of events that affected generations. Ethan raised Samuel alone. Samuel, without emotional support and without a mother, got lost. And Daniel could have had a different life if I had been a better woman. Rachel stood up and walked to the window again. When God healed me, when He changed my heart and made me humble, He put all of this before me. He showed me the cascade of pain my life had created. And He gave me a chance to correct it. Not completely. I can't bring Ethan back. I can't undo Samuel's suffering. But I can take care of Daniel. I can help you, who are a good and kind woman doing everything right. I can break this cycle. Marina felt tears stream down her face. So all of this, she began, was not coincidence, Rachel finished. It was God. It was divine providence. You were in that park that day because God put you there. Because God knew you were a just woman. A woman who deserved help. And because God knew I needed to correct my mistakes. Rachel returned to her chair. There is one more thing, Marina. I left something in my will. I am a woman of 60 years. I don't know how much longer I have on this earth. But I left instructions. If anything happens to me, half of my property goes to Daniel. Not as charity, but as compensation for the injustices my life caused to his family. And you, Marina, will be his guardian and administrator of his assets until he is 25 years old. Marina couldn't speak. It was all too much. It was too big. Why are you telling me this now? Marina managed to ask. Because you need to know the truth, Rachel answered. Because we deserve to live our lives in truth, not in lies or secrets. And because, Marina, I want you to know that you were not chosen by accident. You were chosen by God. You are an important part of this divine plan. In the months that followed, Marina's life changed again, but this time in a deeper way. She visited Samuel at a rehabilitation center, where Rachel had placed him. He was working on his recovery, trying to fix himself. Rachel paid for his treatment, his therapy, his education. It wasn't easy. Samuel had suffered a lot, and there were deep scars. But there was hope now. There was possibility. Daniel, not knowing the whole story, Marina decided to wait until he was older. Now had a grandmother. Rachel visited him, spent time with him, and taught him about the value of compassion and humility. Daniel loved his grandmother. And Rachel, finally, had a reason to smile beyond money and power. A year later, Marina was supervising the construction of a new car model in the design studio at Albright Motors. It was a special car, innovative design, impressive engineering. But what made it special was that Rachel had insisted it be dedicated to the memory of Ethan. For the man who was my fault and who deserved better, Rachel had said when she proposed the idea. And at the dedication, in front of hundreds of employees at Albright Motors, Rachel gave a speech that would change the way everyone saw her. A year ago, I was a different woman, Rachel began. I was someone who believed that wealth and power were all that mattered. Someone who had no room in her heart for compassion or humility. And then God showed me the error of my ways. It wasn't easy. God wasn't gentle, he was necessary. The room fell into absolute silence. This car is dedicated to the memory of Ethan, an extraordinary man I raised with negligence. It is dedicated to his descendants who are here in this room. And it is dedicated to all of us, because we can all be better. We can all have more compassion, more humility, more faith. We can all be healed by God's grace if we only allow it. Rachel looked at Marina, who was sitting in the front row next to Daniel. I spent my entire life chasing the next deal, the next profit, the next acquisition. But true success is not measured in dollars, Marina, and everyone here should know that. It is measured in the quality of our lives, in the depth of our relationships, and in the way we treat those who have less than us. That night, when Marina took Daniel home, the 7-year-old boy asked, "Mom, is Grandmother Rachel like a superhero?" Marina smiled. "Yes, my son. Yes, she is. But not because she has a lot of money or a lot of power, but because she had the courage to recognize that she was wrong and had the humility to change." "How does someone become like that?" Daniel asked. "How can someone change so much?" Marina thought about the question. She thought about the wallet in the park. She thought about the chance, or lack thereof, that had brought all of this. She thought about God, about faith, about providence. "With faith, son," Marina answered finally. "With the belief that there is something greater than us. With the willingness to listen when God speaks. And with the courage to change when we know we are wrong." Daniel wrapped his arm around Marina's neck. "Well, I'm grateful for you, Mom. You've always been my superhero." In that moment, Marina cried. She cried for the journey she had traveled. She cried for the unexpected grace she had received. And she cried for the certainty that the future, now, was bright. Months later, Ethan, that first Ethan, Samuel's father, that man who had been neglected by Rachel, would be remembered not just by a car, but by a legacy. Samuel, after completing his rehabilitation program, became a counselor for victims of addiction. Using his own story of pain and recovery, he helped other people find their way back. Rachel, during her remaining years, doctors never could explain why her illness had disappeared so completely, dedicated herself to charitable work. She created a foundation that helped people in poverty, especially those trying to build better lives for their children. She didn't ask for recognition. She didn't seek gratitude. She simply gave and helped in silence, with the knowledge that God was watching. And Marina? Marina became not just a successful manager, but an admired leader. She became someone who promoted compassion and integrity within her company. She became a mother who taught her son that true wealth was not material, but spiritual. Sometimes on days off, Marina and Daniel would go to Central Park, that park where it all began. They would sit on the same bench where Marina had found the wallet, and Marina would tell the story again. She would tell how a jobless and desperate woman had found something she wasn't looking for, How a simple act of integrity, returning something that wasn't hers, had changed her life forever. Mom, do you think God does this with other people? Daniel would ask. Do you think he places miracles in the path of those who need them most? Marina would look at her son, at the boy who had been raised in poverty, but who now had hope, education, and a bright future ahead. Yes, my son, she would answer. I think so. But the miracle is not always a wallet full of money. Sometimes it's a second chance. Sometimes it's someone who believes in you when you stopped believing in yourself. And sometimes, it's simply the courage to do the right thing, even when no one is watching. And as the sun set over Central Park, and as the two sat together in peace, Marina knew with absolute certainty that her life had been touched by the hand of God, that everything had happened for a reason, and that the miracle was not the past, but the future. A future full of possibilities, full of love, full of faith. The wallet had been just the beginning, just the key that opened a door to a new life. But the true miracle was this, the transformation of a heart. The transformation of Rachel from an arrogant woman to a humble woman. The transformation of a broken life into a whole life. And the transformation of despair into hope. And this, dear reader, is the true story of Marina Werner and Rachel Albright. A story of faith. A story of redemption. A story that reminds us that not everything in this world is explained by logic. That there is a greater force working, guiding, blessing. And that sometimes when you are at your lowest point, when you think nothing else can go right, God places a wallet in your path. He can place a special person in your path. He can open a door you never saw before. All you need to do is believe. All you need to do is have faith. All you need to do is do the right thing, even when no one is watching. Because God is always watching. And God rewards those who have faith.